On the 12th of March 1946, inside of the city of Budapest in Hungary, a number of former politicians and collaborators who sold their nation and many people out to the Nazis and Germans during World War II were taken to their execution. They were brought out in front of a large crowd that was stood in front of the Academy of Music, and there were a number of execution posts or poles for these men to be condemned on. One of the dead men walking was Ferenc Szalasi, the former Prime Minister of Hungary, who was responsible for the deaths of thousands who were sent to the Nazi concentration and extermination camps. But alongside him were former members of his government who had also been sentenced to death, and this included his Minister of the Interior, Gabor Vajna. He was executed alongside some of his closest friends and colleagues, and was also held accountable for the deaths of thousands who were sent to sites such as Auschwitz. Welcome to The Untold Past. Today we look at the pole-hanging execution of the Hungarian collaborator beast, Gabor Vajna. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Gabor Vajna was born on the 4th of November 1891 into a Transylvanian family. He had a rather normal upbringing inside of the family home, and he grew up in what was at the time the Kingdom of Hungary. As the First World War broke out, Vajna joined up with the Austro-Hungarian army to fight on the Western Front, and he became part of the 29th Feldjäger Battalion and then became an officer. He was a rather highly decorated soldier and served for a combined total of 43 months inside of the military during the conflict, which was a huge amount considering the costly death toll of the First World War and the fact that some soldiers lasted just a matter of minutes, going over the top as soon as they arrived on the front line of the trenches. But after the conflict had come to an end, he took up a job inside of the Hungarian embassy in Vienna, Austria, and he then began to mix in governmental circles. He worked inside of the Ministry of Defence, and he officially retired from the armed forces in 1924 with the rank of a major, before then taking a job as a director in a gunpowder factory. However, at this time his colleagues became concerned as they discovered his political beliefs and the fact he supported the far right, and he was then sacked from his position. Gabor Vajna had a rather quick and meteoric rise to the top of politics. He was a close friend of Ferenc Szalasi, who would later during the Second World War become the Prime Minister of Hungary and the leader of the nation. Vajna was a supporter of the Arrow Cross Party, a far-right ultranationalist party which came to government in October 1944 for a number of months during World War II. Szalasi had founded it in 1935, and it was modelled on the Nazi Party, and the ideas of those supporters were similar to that of the fascists in Italy and also the Nazis in Germany. The Nazis would take Hungarian territory and lands, and they forced the regent in October 1944 to abdicate, with Szalasi and his Arrow Cross Party being instated into power to run the nation. These were Nazi collaborators, but Szalasi's authority was limited due to the advancements of the Soviet Red Army at the time in the war. Vajna had been in the years before elected to become a Member of Parliament, and after the German occupation he developed good relationships with the Gestapo and also senior members of the SS. When the Arrow Cross came to power, Gabor Vajna became the Minister of the Interior, and with this he was responsible for internal affairs inside of the land, but this was devastating. He was even sent to go and meet with Heinrich Himmler, and he later said of this meeting that, upon invitation of the Reichsführer SS Himmler, and on the orders of the national leader, Szalasi, I travelled to Himmler's headquarters on the Western Front. Himmler received me at the time on his special train. We discussed the evacuation of Hungary, the establishment of 4 commands, each of the gendarmerie and police, and a central registration office in Germany, which should register all Hungarian persons living in Germany, including the Jews. Himmler stated that they were being well treated in Germany. So at these meetings he had been discussing plans to deport many Jewish people, and then he met with senior SS officer Ernst Kaltenbrunner to further solidify the plans for the Jews of Hungary. Vajna also later stated that Kaltenbrunner promised to establish the registration office immediately and to transport the Jews by railway if possible. Kaltenbrunner forced the immediate and energetic delivery, and said that especially Eichmann had the order to supervise this action. Eichmann came to see me in the Ministry of the Interior several times. Eichmann wanted to deport even the children, women and old men from Budapest. Gabor Vajna was involved in the actions against the Jews in Hungary, and thousands of people were sent to Auschwitz. Dozens of thousands of people were sent into Nazi hands from Hungary, and most of these were executed and exterminated inside the different death camps and centres established within the Third Reich, and with this Vajna's ministry was involved in the slaughter and willingly handed these people over to be killed, knowing what would happen. His ministry even managed to establish the Budapest ghetto for a number of months. But as the Second World War was coming to an end, Gabor Vajna tried to escape towards the west. However, he fell into the hands of the United States Army, and along with other members of the Hungarian government, he was arrested. He was then deported back to Budapest, and he was brought in front of the People's Tribunal alongside Ferenc Szalasi and a number of other prominent members of the Arrow Cross Party. He was seen as a brutal and ruthless collaborator with the Nazis, and Vajna's actions had led to the slaughter of thousands inside of the gas chambers within the concentration camps. He was sentenced to death for crimes against humanity, treason, and also war crimes, and his execution was to take place inside of Budapest, the city where many people lost their lives because of his crimes. Specifically, the method of Vajna's execution was pole hanging. This was also known as the Austrian gallows, and was used inside of Hungary and Czechoslovakia at the end of the Second World War to take the lives of prominent war criminals. On the 12th of March 1946, the 54-year-old former Minister of the Interior was led out to the execution pole alongside Ferenc Szalasi, and they were taken out to the Academy of Music. Each of the men were led up to the execution post, and a pair of executioners would perform the executions themselves. Pole hanging was a method which was different to using the gallows, and the executioners passed the rope used to hang the person through a system of pulleys, and they then secured the condemned to the post through a chest sling that held them in the air before the noose was then placed around their necks. After the sling was released, the condemned jerked downwards, and the executioner used his hand to push the neck to one side, manually dislocating it. It was said that death happened usually within a minute. Gabor Vajna was secured to a pole, and he was hoisted up into the air and was held into place with the chest sling, whilst the executioners wrapped the rope around the system and made sure his legs were secure. He faced the crowd, and then when the execution was ready, the noose was fastened, and the executioner signalled to his assistant to release the drop, and the executioner then tried his best to dislocate the neck of the former Hungarian politician. He was left on the post for a number of minutes in front of the crowd before the executioner placed a white cap over his head, and his body was left up for some time. Gabor Vajna was a brutal man who, during the Second World War, had the blood of thousands of people on his hands. In his short time in power, his government sent many people to concentration and extermination camps, where most were slaughtered and killed within minutes of entering the sites. He was, for his crimes, declared a traitor of his nation, and he was then sentenced to death and was executed alongside many of his closest allies and friends in government. But in front of the large crowd in Budapest, he was executed using pole hanging. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.